All right, everybody. Sooners Illustrated game preview time. Week 8, Game 7, number 14, Oklahoma. South Carolina, Saturday morning on the SEC Network, out in Columbia. Afternoon, I guess, locally there in South Carolina. 11:45 Central, 12:45 Eastern. First real road game of the year. All due respect to Temple. I mean, there was maybe more OU fans there that day. This is something they haven't really done this year, going completely, obviously, hostile environment. We kind of touched on it a little bit on Monday, guys. Josh Callaway, James E. Jackson, Tom Green, by the way. I don't know if I said that. I think I don't say our names on the we talked about it on Monday a little bit, right? I mean, this feels like a fork in the road. I mean, this is a spot where you go play well and you win. You're feeling like you're kind of back on track. You've put Texas behind you. You can kind of write it off as like, oh, Mateer missed all that time, blah, blah, blah. Where if you lose this weekend, it's not literally over because there's still a lot of big games, but you just aren't going to feel real confident they're going to win enough down the stretch to accomplish the goals that they set out to at the beginning of the year. Very big spot this weekend for this team going on the road.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, kind of a fork in the road. This feels like the most winnable game remaining on the schedule. Not that other games aren't winnable,
game, at the very least,
but not that other games aren't winnable. But you look at how South Carolina has kind of struggled through this first half of the season, 3-3 overall, 1-3 in SEC play. Their offensive line's been shaky too. I know they got some injuries up front there, but still a very talented team. Like Brent Venables pointed out, they think they lead the nation in non-offensive touchdowns this season with 6, 3 defensive, I think 3 special teams touchdowns. So it's going to present its challenges for an Oklahoma offense that, obviously has, its own kinks to work out midway through the year.
Mm-hmm. And you're looking to see if Oklahoma can just prove that it was all just everybody being out of timing for why the offensive play was so bad against Texas. You want to get back on track. And as Tom says, this is the most winnable game for the remainder of the schedule. This is the best time to do that because you got a team that's 3-3, really not doing well against expectations they had at the beginning of the year as well. So you want to have a chance to go out there and show that it was just missed timing. Now that you had a full week of practice with John Mateer leading that offense, you want to see good things from them overall. I think defensively it's going to be a lot better. Tackling was an issue against Texas. Beretta was and said it was uncharacteristics for that unit. I think they've been working on that in practice, and I think it's going to be just fine on the defensive side of the ball. So offense is great. Like a lot of my attention is going to be how that offense looks against South Carolina.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because the more I've thought about this game this week, it's almost a do-over of what we just did. It's kind of similar. I mean, it's a team that had expectations coming in, not like Texas #1, but they were in the top 15 in the preseason poll. There was some thought that South Carolina was a borderline playoff team. They haven't played to expectation. They're 3-3, but they do have a dynamic quarterback, Lenore Sellers, who can make things happen. You're coming in feeling like you have the matchup advantage on paper, especially O-line, D-line, meaning Oklahoma's D-line, South Carolina's offensive line. But, they're a favorite, but, we saw what happened last weekend. We went in thinking that Oklahoma was in good shape to win, and they obviously didn't play well in the second half, and they lose. Feels similar this weekend. Like, if they play well, they should be okay. But if you don't, this is obviously a game that you can definitely lose on the road. Against South Carolina, even though they haven't quite performed to the level they thought they would going into the year. Should be a hostile environment. I'm interested to see what it's like. Tom, I meant to ask you have or have not been to Columbia?
I have a few times.
You have? Okay. Well, so you have an idea of what this environment will be like. I mean, pretty much everywhere in the SEC is tough, but this is, assuming that they're ready for this. It is an early kick. It is a little bit of a disappointing start to the year, but this should be a pretty tough environment. You can speak to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the toughest in the SEC, and I think the fact that it's a 12:45 local time kick certainly benefits Oklahoma from that regard. It just won't be as raucous as you would get for a night environment. Mm-hmm. I think the 3 prior times I've been there, they've all been like late afternoon or night kicks, so you definitely feel the energy there. But like a lot of places, like when you get that early kick, it's just kind of doesn't have that same hum to it. Sure. But still, like you said, this is the first, true road test for Oklahoma this season. That Temple game was, maybe half full stadium, and half of that half was Oklahoma fans. Yeah. Again, the most hostile environment they've played in at this point is that one end of the Cotton Bowl where Texas fans are.
Yeah, honestly.
So there are different things that go into being on the road. Just getting in the rhythm, having a different schedule than you would at home. So they've at least had that under their belt with having to travel to Dallas, with having to travel to Philadelphia. So that aspect won't be new to them. But this will be the most hostile environment that they've seen yet.
No doubt. I've never been to the state of South Carolina, so Tom's got the best opinion on it, I think, of us.
Yeah, no, I mean it'll be fun. It was fun getting out to the SEC road games last year. This first one for this year, and we'll see what they can do in Columbia, get sandstorm blasting and all that good stuff. Injury front, not bad. Not bad. Derek Simmons available, which is huge. I mean, we all kind of thought coming out of Saturday, like, oh boy, that didn't look good, and Logan Howland still trying to work his way back. Sexton Taylor, no idea if we're going to see them anytime soon. But Derek Simmons not on the availability report this week. So good news there, obviously. That would suggest that he will be available. They should have their starting offensive line for this game. Defense continues to be completely healthy. Sounds like maybe no Keontez Lewis this week, but for the most part, this is a healthy football team. We talked about that last week, and it seems like they dodged a bullet on the Derek Simmons front because they don't have a lot of depth at tackle. So getting him back out there will be huge if that's the way it goes. It certainly looks that way. Again, the availability report would suggest as much. So pretty healthy football team, though, all things considered. And John Mateer, a full week of practice. He talked about that on Monday. That should certainly help. So on that side, it feels like Oklahoma in pretty good shape.
Yeah, they're very fortunate that it wasn't more serious with Derek Simmons. It looked a lot worse in real time with the way he got rolled up at the end of that run by Xavier Robinson. Just kind of a Texas defender kind of falling into him or him stumbling back into him. It was a tough play, and he obviously had a difficult time putting weight on that left leg as he was walking into the tunnel afterward, and we didn't see the rest of the game. But Brent Venables said Tuesday that he was day-to-day, which was promising, and then yesterday obviously Wednesday obviously wasn't on the availability report. So that's good news that they will have their starting 5 available. I think you're still concerned about the depth at tackle. You would love to get Logan Howland back just because he's kind of been that swing guy, but the fact that they're still down Jacob Sexton and Jake Taylor and just kind of thin on the outside there, it is something that you're still a little bit concerned about because again, if one guy goes down, you're down to Luke Baklenko as your only real true backup offensive tackle at this point. I think UK Daniel Akinkunme was working behind Michael Festucci at left tackle last week, so I'd expect that to probably be the case again this week if Logan Howland is ruled out again. But yeah, for the most part, healthy. Javonte Barnes questionable. Brent Venables said he got something happened to him pregame before the Texas game, and they thought it was a hamstring at first, but then it wasn't, and he practiced Monday but was questionable on the first availability report of the week. So that's something to monitor too, because again, he's been their best pass blocking running back. Torrey Blaylock's improved in that regard, but you'd like to have Javonte Barnes available to kind of help with the blocking. That has been an issue at times for this team.
Sure.
But again, overall, just generally healthy. We'll see what happens with Keontez Lewis. But again, if you're without him, at least you have Javonte Gibson back in the mold now, or back in the mix now, and that can give him an opportunity for some more reps as he continues to just get his legs under him and get involved in this offense.
I mean, yeah, Derek Simmons is a guy that they absolutely need. I mean, they went out in the portal and got him to get his size and his experience on the offensive line, and they need him out there. That's pretty much what it is because, as you said, the other tackles are out. We seen this last year, and Jacob Sexton mentioned it in fall camp. It was like when you're trying to learn your position and work on just your position with the other 4 guys on the offensive line, it makes it more difficult when you have to shift guys around. I mean, so you don't want to have to have that situation, and Oklahoma's at the very last brink of that, I guess, with these 5 guys that are out there before you have to start really shifting and moving guys around there. So just want to see him out there. It's a good sign for Oklahoma because the offensive line does look better when Derek Simmons is out there with the other guys, with Michael Festucci and them. So just want to see that again. So it's good that he's off the report. As Tom said, it looks a lot less serious than it did in the game. So it's a good sign for Oklahoma.
Yeah, as beat up as they are, offensive line, they should have their starting 5. I mean, this weekend. So, you're feeling okay, relatively speaking, about that. And defense continues to remain totally healthy. I mean, knock on wood, but no significant injuries over there through the first half of the season, which is obviously great to see. Let's get into it as far as what Oklahoma needs to do to actually win this game. let's go to our keys to the game here up first. Tom, you're going to start off. What do they got to do? I mean, what's the path to getting this done? They are a favorite this weekend. We'll obviously pick it here coming up on the back end, but how does Oklahoma get this done on Saturday? What's the top key for you?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record because this is kind of what I said last week, but you need to get after Lenore Sellers. He is a difference maker at quarterback. He presents a different kind of challenge just because of how he's built. He's a large man, hard to bring down. So, getting the sacks isn't always going to be as easy, though. South Carolina has been one of the worst teams in the nation at allowing sacks. They're giving up 3.3 per game, which I believe is 127th in the FBS. The only Power 4 team that's given up more per game this year is Auburn. And we saw what Oklahoma did against Auburn's offensive line. So there is reason for optimism that Oklahoma can get pressure. Again, they got plenty of pressure last week against Arch Manning. I think it was 25 total pressures, but they only had the 1 sack. In this one, again, you have to be able to not just pressure Lenore Sellers and get him off his mark, off his timing, but if you can bring him down some, and rack up a few of those sacks, that's going to help this defense get them in a better position to win this game. Again, he is a big dude, hard to bring down. He can extend plays with his legs. So if you can, corral him in the backfield and not let him kind of improvise or extend plays, then that'll go a long way toward limiting what South Carolina can do offensively.
Mm-hmm. I think the key is to get in rhythm offensively. Like, as I said earlier, it was about the timing that really looked, wild for Oklahoma against Texas. Getting that back was going to help out a lot because Oklahoma seemed to lose that game against Texas in the third quarter when the offense just ran 4 plays. I mean, I know that's part of the defense as well, but the offense was a 3 and out. I mean, it was just like you couldn't get a rhythm going, and John Mateer just didn't look like himself. So I think this week of practice, it should have helped that. And I think you're going to see a better play calling scheme because of that. I think overall it's going to be better for Oklahoma. So if you can get in a good offensive rhythm, even with the defense not playing up to their stand, I think you can win this game because of the challenges that South Carolina has on their side of the football as well.
Yeah, spinning off that, for me, in all capital letters, take care of the ball. Really, John Mateer specifically. Just putting the ball in harm's way too much. He kind of got away with it earlier in the year. But he's thrown an interception every game this year. I mean, even when John's played well, he puts the ball in harm's way, and that totally burned him against Texas, obviously. Can't afford to do that on the road this weekend. And I don't need to remind anyone, this game last year was over in 5 minutes because Michael Hawkins turned the ball over and over and over. Brent Venables talked about that in the press conference on Tuesday. So, I mean, this game basically didn't happen last year because it was over so quick with that. So, not that I'm worried about a similar thing. That was an albatross of a situation with how that game unfolded last year. But it just feels like, I mean, Oklahoma right now defensively is not forcing turnovers. You figure at some point that'll turn around, but we are halfway through the year and it hasn't, right? So you got to take care of the ball the other way and don't screw over your defense. Essentially, they have done an amazing job somehow holding up in those quick change situations. You can't bank on that forever. So Oklahoma's got to take care of the ball. And really, again, in particular, I'm kind of singling out John because he's throwing a lot of interceptions, and you gotta cut that out. Got to cut that out.
Yeah, just a quick correction. He has not thrown an interception in every game. He did not have one against Auburn, but he did have the missed exchange where he fumbled it. So he has a turnover in every game.
I thought he threw a pick against Auburn.
No, he's got 6 interceptions in 5 games, and obviously 3 of them were against Texas. So
Sure. And obviously,
but that's the thing.
We talked about it, cost them a shutout. Illinois. I mean, that will hurt. I mean, you're trying to win lower scoring games right now. You just can't have that. Can't have that.
And I think that's kind of thing you took on with John Mateer. I mean, you knew he was a gunslinger, though. That's like you were expecting those, like as Tom has been saying, I think throughout the season, those more explosive down the field shots that have just been, touchdown plays that you haven't had this year. And I think that's what's been the biggest difference about if you're going to be a gunslinger, you got to have those plays as well, I think, overall. So,
I think there's a difference between being risky and being reckless. Mm-hmm. And I think at times last week he was reckless.
No doubt.
He just needs to rein in. And again, I think some of that is just, being out of rhythm from not, having practice reps and being in game speed for 3 weeks. It's difficult to come back from and just like jump back into. But, we've heard all the right things from him, from his teammates, from the coaches about how he's handled that loss Saturday. So I'd expect him to be a little bit smarter with the ball and making better decisions this week, but we'll see.
No doubt. I mean, giving Giovanni Gibson a 50-50 ball in the end zone is one thing. Forcing it as Jaren Kanak in double coverage is another. Like, you have to be smart with it. So we'll see. That's a big one, though. Got to take care of the ball. Got to this weekend if they're going to win this thing. Players to watch. Where do you go first, James? You can start us off here. Where do your eyes go? I mean, we obviously talk about Mateer a lot. That's certainly one that you could jump on or go elsewhere. But where are you watching for as far as someone that needs to kind of deliver this weekend?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think I picked him last week as well, but I didn't see a lot from him against the Texas game, and that's Isaiah Sategna. I thought he would be a bigger playmaker against Texas, in the punt game and as receiver. I want to see that, more of that against South Carolina, because I think when this offense does get that timing, as I've been talking about, and get in rhythm, I think Isaiah Sategna is a big part of what that offense is. I think that's where John Mateer gets his rhythm, when he can find Isaiah Sategna over the middle and things like that. So that's the one I want to pick again, because I think he didn't get the game that he needed against Texas. So you have to do it against South Carolina. As you said, it's a redo from last week. I mean, I think that's pretty much where we're at here.
Yeah, no doubt. For me, I'm gonna cheat a little and go with a twofer. Gentry Williams and Eli Bowen. For me, both the guys. South Carolina. Tom mentioned earlier. The sack numbers. They just fired their offensive line coach this week. They can't run the ball, even worse than OU, which is amazing. They have the number 111 rushing offense. Okay, so they're going to try and throw the ball this weekend. They have two good receivers, Vendravius Jacobs and Nick Harbor. Gentry Williams talked a little bit about Harbor the other day. I don't know what the matchups are going to be there, but you figure it's going to be Williams and Bowen against these two guys, right? If they can hold up, and they did pretty good last week. I mean, how many times did any of them give up an actual catch down the field? Really none, right? I mean, very, very seldom. So those two guys are going to have a tough matchup here. I can say good quarterback, Lenore Sellers. If you force South Carolina is going to try again. They're going to try and win this game through the air, you'd imagine. I can't envision a world where they're going to run the ball with any sort of real success this weekend against this D line. So that's really going to be South Carolina's path to points. So looking at those two to step up, tough matchup. If they can shut that down, it's hard to see a world where South Carolina, moves the ball really with any sort of regularity. So those two guys for me, big game for both of them.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a position group and instead of just a player. I'm going to say Oklahoma's offensive line. That they're coming off of a very bad game. Obviously, part of that was losing Derek Simmons for 50 of the 70 offensive snaps that they had against Texas. But you touched on it. Oklahoma's not been able to run the ball with any sort of consistency or reliability this season. Their per carry numbers are worse than they were last year, and we know how bad the offense was last year. Michael Fasusi talked about it this week. It's like, it's about wanting to impose your will and moving someone from point A to point B, and the offensive line just has not been able to do that in the run game this season. It sounds like Torrey Blaylock is going to be the kind of featured back moving forward. I know he's started a few games, but I think that they're going to start leaning into him a little bit more. It sounds like that Jaden Ott experiment might be over. Who knows? We'll see what happens. That rotation is always hard to kind of figure out what they're going to do there. But again, the focus for me this week is just on this offensive line. Like, they don't need to be world beaters when it comes to the run game, but they need to do something to create some space where they can break off of 10 or 11-yard runs like we saw Torrey Blaylock do that a few times last week, but they can't be getting knocked back every time. They need to do something to create a little bit of space and take some pressure off this passing game. Because you look at last week, John Mateer attempted a season-high 38 passes. It was only 2 or 3 more than he was averaging, but he also had like 7 or 8 more drop-back opportunities than he had in his previous 4 starts. So they just had to rely too much on that passing game because they weren't getting anything from the run game. In 2 SEC games, they're averaging just 40 yards per game on the ground, something like 1.4, 1.5 yards per carry. That's just not going to cut it in the second half of the season. They need to figure out a way to fix this broken run game. And again, I'm not expecting them to, have a 180 turnaround, but they need to do something to be a little bit better in that regard to give this offense a chance.
Let's set the over-under on Mateer passes right there at 38. You just say over-under 38 pass attempts for Mateer this weekend. And really the spinoff of that is, where are you at with the run game in terms of, are you even still trying? because I feel like I've kind of given up that this team's not going to be able to run the ball. Like, it's not going to happen,
First, I take the under, just because, again, those first 4 games, I think he was averaging like 35 pass attempts per game.
Yeah.
I think we'll see him run a little bit more too, like more design runs or more QB draws, which they've done a good job at using for the most part. It really wasn't there last week. Again, his best run of that game was that 33-yarder. I think it was on a draw that got called back because of the holding penalty against Carson Kent. But if they can get John Mateer going in the +1 run game, like we've seen that be successful for them and kind of open things up a little bit more. But yeah, I think you still have to try to run the ball. Like, you're not going to win a game throwing it 50, 60 times in this league. But you need to get creative too. Whether that's and again, like when I'm talking about the run game and even some of the earlier games, John Mateer's passing numbers were a little bit inflated because they were doing those pop passes, which are basically an extension of the run game, but it just goes down as a pass in the book because he is technically throwing it forward. We haven't seen that in a few games, it feels like. If they can, again, spread them out to create some running lanes somehow, I think that will benefit them. But yeah, I'm taking the under on 38 pass attempts, and I think you do still have to try to run the ball, but you can't keep doing what you've been doing through these first 6 games because it's not been working.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under as well. I think, Oklahoma all season has played with the lead for majority of their game time. I think against Texas, they were in an unfamiliar territory overall, just not playing with the lead as much. And I think maybe that contributed to some of the dropbacks. But yeah, the run game has just been bad. I'm not sure. Like I'm like you, Josh. I'm not very confident in the run game at all. Like, I'm just not even worried about that being a part of the game anymore. I mean, if they want to keep trying it, they can, because they've had a little bit of success. Like Torrey Blaylock had a couple of 10-yard runs against Texas. I mean, there was times where they had that, but it just, when you have so many of those 1-yard runs and just negative runs, it kind of gets overlooked. So, like, I mean, there's opportunities there, obviously, but it's just not something that you can rely on because Oklahoma is just so spotty at it. I mean, I just don't see it overall happening for Oklahoma. So I think you're going to win with, as you said, spreading them out, getting into that. I mean, the offense kind of looks the best when they do that 5 wide and nobody in the backfield formation, and John Mateer has all that room to work with. I see a lot of good things there, even from the offensive line. They pass block well in that situation. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they go more to that overall if they can't get the run game going, but I'm not confident at all. I don't see it overall.
Torrey Blaylock has been the best guy there, and he's earned being that guy for at least for now. But I wouldn't mind seeing a little more Xavier Robinson this weekend. We still haven't really seen him really since the Alabama game, like really get turned loose. Like, since he was so good in that game, it felt like, look, this was his coming out party. We haven't really seen him get going, like, really since then. They didn't really use him LSU game. Certainly haven't this season, really. So. We'll see. I'm pulling the plug pretty quick, though. I can only watch so many runs go nowhere before I'm like, all right, we're just going to throw it around. That would be me. That'd be me. But let's go ahead and pick this thing. Oklahoma, South Carolina this weekend. Oklahoma is a favorite on the road. Like I said earlier, 5.5, actually. Kind of a healthy favorite. Not huge, but healthy on the road. The over-under is really low. I think I just had it 43.5. So about the same as it was at the Cotton Bowl, which obviously went well under. Where are you guys at? I guess I'm picking first. Colin Kennedy had 21-17 on the Thursday edition of the Sooners Illustrated podcast. I'll start it out. I'm going to take Oklahoma. I'd be lying if I said I felt good about it. I just don't know. And the lack of a run game, which we just talked about, is by far my biggest concern moving forward. But I'm going to say Oklahoma. I'm going to say John Mateer plays a lot better. The defense plays well. I'm going to go 20-13. Oklahoma wins in Columbia. I think the defense will play well. I mean, the defense was good against Texas. It really was. I mean, how much of, like, a third of their total yards was on that one drive where they couldn't get off the field on third down, some uncharacteristic missed tackles. Kind of like John Mateer, I'm going to give the defense the benefit of the doubt that they're going to bounce back and that was a one-off and that they'll play really well. And again, it wasn't even bad at the Cotton Bowl, but that they'll play really well this weekend. John Mateer will play better. I think he's probably wearing it this week, and he's going to come out very determined, and he's putting together a big week trying to play well out there. And so I'll say they bounce back and play reasonably well, and kind of like the Auburn game, and to an extent the Michigan game, they kind of just grind one out on the road here, 20-13. I got the Sooners winning it.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I think this one's going to be pretty close. I'm not sure what to do with South Carolina, like as far as like what I think their score is going to be. I think I settled on Oklahoma taking this one 24-20, but I could see it being lower than that for South Carolina just because Oklahoma's defense has been so good. But I also don't want to discount the fact that South Carolina's been so good at scoring non-offensive touchdowns this season. I think that this is going to finally be the first SEC game that Oklahoma's offense scores more than 2 touchdowns. They've not done that in their first 2 seasons so far. The most they've had is 2 against Auburn earlier this year. They had 2 against Auburn last year, obviously a non-offensive touchdown and some field goals in that win over there. It's been tough sledding, but I think that John Mateer is going to look a lot better in this game, and he's going to do enough to help them. It's not going to answer all the questions that they have mid-season, but it's going to do enough to get them back on track after last week's dispiriting loss down in the Cotton Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm close to you guys. I got 2014, so I think there's going to be a couple of field goals from Tate Sindel, and he's been amazing this year. So that's something you can really believe in going forward. So I think you get a couple of field goals from him. I think Oklahoma's offense scores 2 touchdowns. I guess I don't get the 3 touchdowns in the SEC as Tom is saying, but I'm close to it. I think overall, facing against Lenore Sellers, who was a Heisman candidate before the season started, like that was the talk. He was that talented, and you got a guy on the outside like Nick Harbor. It's just they're gonna get theirs eventually. I think overall, so I think they're gonna score a couple touchdowns there. But I think Oklahoma gets it because they're more talented than South Carolina, and I think they're in a better rhythm overall. I think when you start firing coaches mid-season, that kind of puts a damper on your year. So you're not really sure where to go from there. So I think that's kind of where South Carolina's at. So I think Oklahoma takes advantage of that here.
It'll be very interesting to see if the defensive line can kind of take over this game the way we thought they might be able to in Dallas. And they played well, but just could never get home on Arch Manning, only the 1 sack. It'd be interesting to see if they can maybe inflate that number. Like we said, we bag on Oklahoma's offensive line, and it hasn't been good. South Carolina's has been worse by really any metric, which is, it gives you an idea, right? It's been a struggle big time for them. So you certainly like that matchup, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. First SEC road trip of the year. Tom and I will be out there in Columbia. Obviously, full coverage over on the website right now. Sooners Illustrated, Oklahoma.247sports.com. Full coverage all day on Saturday from Columbia. Obviously on the YouTube channel as well here from Brent Venables, Ben Arbuckle, John Mateer, the rest of the team, and certainly some instant reaction from us as well on Saturday. It's going to be a day. Looking forward to it, and a very big spot in Oklahoma's season, and really kind of, you don't want to make it more than it is, but kind of the Brent Venables era. There's a lot on the line this weekend, so we'll see what happens. It's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. For Tom Green, James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you Saturday from Columbia. Oklahoma takes on South Carolina.